Hey, what's up? It's Kit. Time for another video, and today we're doing an update on these three reels. I know I've shown you what I was gonna do with them, and I showed you some handles that I put in. And after everything, I actually kind of decided that I would just keep all these three exactly the same, and we're gonna talk about why. For those of you who are just joining us for this video, thanks so much for clicking and joining us. This channel talks about the hows and whys of fishing, and I cover everything from big game, ultralight, everything in the middle, including fly fishing. And today we're talking about these three reels and why they have pretty much the same handles. All right, so first and foremost, I just got these reels. This one has been with me for quite some time. These reels are going to be used mainly in Dubai and in the Gulf, and could be that I'm also using them for shallow water work in the East Coast in Fujairah. Now, these three reels are pretty much also kind of like in the same category, except that this one is a power gear. These two are HGs. So this is the main reel. This is the backup. This was my main reel before, and I used it mostly for tie rubber fishing and also for slow jigging. This is kind of new. My combo for my fast jigging before was spinning rod, which I still or spinning rod and reel, which I still use and love, but I wanted a bit more consistency in my system. So instead of actually sticking with my spinning fast jigging rod and reel combo, I've decided to actually just have three of these. Now, there's a few reasons why I've actually chosen to put the same handle on three of them. Okay, one is that the longer your handle for fast and slow jigging, the easier and more control you would have. Now, for fast jigging in particular, when you're jigging, a handle that's longer would actually give you a bit more comfort because you'll have more leverage, therefore also giving you a bit more control. Now, for both instances, it slows down your rate of retrieve, and this is very important. For slow jigging, in particular, if you have a longer handle, your travel rate around the reel when you retrieve is actually bigger, which slows it down. If you have a shorter handle, your throw, your pitch, or whatever you want to call it, is smaller. It's a smaller circle, which makes it even faster. Now, for me, I wanted to be consistent from one to the other, and more importantly, it actually slows the jig down and keeps me in the strike zone. Now, it might not be something that a lot of people agree on, and but for me, for my style and for my methods, it's actually something that works. Okay. Now, for slow jigging, the longer handle will give you a bit more control, especially with smaller jigs, or for bigger jigs even. Okay, it just gives you a bit more leverage, and it helps you retrieve your line with ease. On a shorter handle, obviously what's going to happen is that you're cranking that, and before you know it gets you tired, because it's kind of like riding a bicycle and you're at high gear. So it gives you more speed, but it's also giving you or making you feel more torque, and you'll have to work harder. On my fast jigs, what happens there is that when I actually do the jigging motion, it keeps the jig in the strike zone longer. Now, it's the same case for my slow jigging setup, but even more so with the power gear, because its rate of retrieve is slower. So essentially, you're making it slower even more, which gives you more time to work the jig, more time to be in the strike zone. And when that fish actually takes, what happens is that it gives you a lot more leverage. Even with the same drag, it'll give you a lot more leverage, and it's easier cranking the fish up. Now, it's especially true for fish like grouper, which are kind of very, very difficult fish to lift off the bottom. Now, with more leverage on this, you'd be able to actually give it a bit more pull and wind, okay, which is very, very important, especially when you're using thin line like I am for this one. It works the same way for for slow jigging as well. Okay, so it gives me a bit more leverage, where it gives me more control and really muscle the fish in when I need to. Kind of very difficult to use when your handles are shorter. Okay, and I'll show you the stock handle. And I mean, I kept it and I'm not getting rid of it, but it just shows you the length, and I'll give you a bit more visual on what I'm talking about here. But this is the difference between the stock handle and the aftermarket. Gives me also a much more comfortable grip than this round handle. There's nothing wrong with it. If you like it, that's great, but it's just for me, even with small hands, this just gives me a bit more grip to give me a bit more leverage. This particular one was my main reel, and I use this for tie rubber. Now, when I'm fishing with 3 reels, this would most likely have a tie rubber attached to it. Again, the longer handle will give me a bit more control, and the most important thing about tie rubber is, of course, to keep on reeling when you're getting a strike, because once you're getting a strike, that's more than likely smaller fish, and what happens there is that a bigger fish would come because he sees that the smaller fish are eating this thing, the tie rubber, and then it'll climb all over it. Now, you have to keep on reeling. If you have a short handle, it's actually kind of difficult to reel it in, especially when you're getting strikes. Now, once you get a strike and the fish is on there, you don't strike it, of course, you have this long handle to actually winch it up, and it makes it easier, especially on a high gear. This serves as a backup also for this one. So it means that if something happens to this, like take for example, if I cut my leader, I have a ready system ready to go. Now, here's the funny bit, and this is the most important thing, and this is the whole reason why I got this in the first place. The feel of this would be exactly the same as this, and that's the most important thing. Okay, having something that's pretty much the same gives you consistency in your system. Now, if you don't agree with this, check out the Bass Fisherman, and you'll see that they actually have combos pretty much that are almost all the same, and that has a lot to do with the feel. And although the systems would be quite different on what they do and what they're used for, the reels and rods that they use are actually pretty much the same. Okay, now the most important thing for me here is that when I hold this reel, set it aside, when I hold this reel, it will feel the same in my hands, giving me consistency, giving me the feel that I need. And it takes very little for me to actually adjust my fishing system. It has a lot to do with confidence. Okay, it has a lot to do with confidence. So when I'm holding something and I'm really confident with it and I'm catching fish, the last thing I would want to have in my hands is actually a different feeling rod and reel. You can't do much with the rod. If you have a fast jigging rod, you move on to a slow jigging rod, it'll feel different. But at least in my hands, it gives me consistency and it gives me the same feeling. And when I crank it, it feels exactly the same way. Even if the retrieval speeds are different, when I crank it, it gives me the same feel. And this is what's very important for me, especially when I'm switching from one to the other. Now, 3 is enough. We all have different budgets. We all have different aims when it comes to fishing. I'm not saying that you should do this, okay? However, if you already have 2 of the 2 reels that are pretty much the same, this is a very good idea, especially when you're doing fast and slow jigging. And believe it or not, once you hold it and once you change things, it really does make a difference when you're fishing, and it keeps you consistent and keeps you confident. All right, so yeah, that's pretty much it, and this is the reason why I changed the handles for all 3 reels. Now again, this is the backup for this, and the main reason for this whole thing is aside from the obvious leverage and staying more in the strike zone and all that, is for me a consistent feeling from one rod to another. These have the same ratio, so they will feel exactly the same, even if, well, there's difference, physical differences, of course, but this will give me a lot more consistency when I do my fishing. And from one rod to another, what I could do is, if I could put like a different lure here and here, or possibly even the same lure, a different weight, and be able to switch immediately without even like thinking, like thinking about, oh, this could feel different, it would, what do you call this, it would affect my fishing. I don't have to think about stuff like that. Okay, I just pick one up. I know it's all three are going to be feeling, are going to sit on my hands exactly the same way. I'm going to have consistent results, or at least consistent expectations on three of them. All right, so yeah, that's it. And again, guys, I'm just explaining here. I'm not telling you to follow, but if you already have something similar, or if you're in a similar situation where you have two or three reels that are the same, change the handle on all three and make them suit your type of fishing and for your use. I'm pretty sure that you'll know exactly what I'm talking about as far as consistency and feel are concerned. All right, so yep. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you learned something, and if you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you haven't yet, please subscribe. I'll see you guys in the next one.